NFL tonight, later on. So it should be a fun little DFS night. And Sheets, are you still planning on maybe trying to do the live thing?
Yeah.
I have a dinner thing, but I'm gonna try to see if I can at least make part of it the live thing tonight.
I'm gonna go live at so we're gonna do 6:30 for the NBA, and then I'm maybe gonna do something live at 7:30 for the NFL for the showdown. But at like 11 o'clock tonight Eastern, I'm gonna do a live sweat for whatever's going on. The showdown, the NBA, or whatever it is. And the showdown slate, I don't even know if you looked at it. How do you like Keenan Allen out? Josh Jacobs out. It is going to be a funnel slate with 41,000 in the winning lineup, probably. As far as
that sounds about right. Yeah, I think that's probably a good bet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's. I actually didn't have a bad night. I didn't have a great night. Like I lost a little bit on DraftKings, and
you were winning 250,000 at like one point.
It was pretty early on, but it was pretty funny. I felt good about the plays. The problem was there was just a lot of really good plays. It was one of the rare nights we've had in a while in the NBA where there was a lot of really good stuff that hit. Like we haven't had much of that where it hit and we had Najee Marshall value 10x the 3K price 3,600 price tag. We just haven't had that stuff. So ready to get into tonight, Sheets. Any overall thoughts that you want to talk about before we go game by game?
No, I just ran the projections. I'm really looking at this for the first time, and I'm already seeing like some pretty, I won't say weird, but it's the same thing every week, every day. It seems is there's nothing. The best value is always like over 5K now. You know what I mean? Like it's hard. There's nothing. It's very and this value that's fishy is now like kind of like a lock. You know what I mean? It's pretty weird. But we'll get to that game in a little bit, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. That's I know which one you're talking about. We can start off with Cleveland and Boston again. We're getting a lot of rematches, so be ready for that. Cleveland and Boston just played, and they're playing again in Boston. What do you like here, Sheets, if anything?
Well, sure. I mean, this is like almost turning into like the Bam thing, where whenever Bam was playing, he was projecting really well and just never got there for me. Jared Allen once again is looking really, really good. And however, there's, as usual, of the 10 top point per dollar plays on my board, like 15 of them are centers. You know what I mean? So it's not as if he's the only play in this range. Well, it's not as if he's the only play, but if I had to pick someone from this game, which you wouldn't think you'd want to play someone from this game, it would be Jared Allen.
Yeah, I get it. I'm totally okay with the Jared Allen thing, but like you said, there's a lot of other plays to consider. The same thing I always say about the Boston side. I feel like it's really hard to know which guy, but everybody looks reasonable price-wise. I don't really mind any of them. I think if I had, I guess maybe just for the value, both White and Holiday, but kind of like Porzingis a little bit here. And I think Donovan Mitchell for large field tournaments is probably a decent idea at 9,100. I know it's a tough matchup, but because it's a tough matchup, they're going to need even more of it from him. He only put up 44 the other day against them. It's not a great play. I'm just throwing it out there because there's going to be a lot of obvious plays that come. So I want to keep some of these guys in for maybe a way to get a little bit different. All right. Chicago, Miami.
Yeah. I'm getting the exact amount of this game where I'm expecting to get, which is very little. Vooch, 7,900, one of 12 centers that look reasonable. And DeMar DeRozan at 8,200, who's never gotten there for me. I have him rated about 12th best, though, as far as point per dollar goes. Puts him in play, I guess, but you just have to think that there's better things to do than play DeMar DeRozan against Miami. So I'm probably off of most of this game as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same thing. Especially on these slates, I think it's. I don't think you have to play one Bull, but I am absolutely treating the Bulls as a team you have to play one of every night. There's not been one night where these guys don't get there. Usually, it's multiple of them getting there. Kobe White and Vucevic both got there in a big way. I don't think they've raised Kobe White's price enough, which sounds weird to say, but he's been over 40, basically at 40 or over every game without Levine, and he's 7,500. He's probably the most desirable to me. And this is not the same Miami defense that we're used to. This is not a healthy Miami team. So while they do play slow and they still play good defense, it's not quite the same defense. So I have right now as Kobe White as my favorite, but I think that all of them are in play. And if Caruso's out again, maybe I'll just punish myself with a little more Desonmu.
Sure, why not? Why not?
Yeah, and then you've got literally every single player basically for Miami is questionable. So I really don't know what to do with it now. But I have no problem with a Jimmy Butler play that no one's going to make. Caleb Martin's a little bit pricier now, but if no one wants to play Jimmy Butler, maybe that's something I'll do later on. So I do think this game actually has a little bit of fantasy stuff that I might be interested in. All right, Minnesota, Dallas.
Yeah, we have Luka, who's a good play. Now it's funny. I don't know if we were on air when we mentioned this, but this is what the NBA is about. You know, before you start playing these high priced guys, like make sure that the rest of your lineup works. Because I mean, it was an extreme example last night, obviously, but you had a guy, as Bobby mentioned to me before we started, a Giannis scored. What did he get? 90?
95.
95, and was nowhere near the winning lineup.
Right. A few third place lineups he was in, but not in the winners.
Yeah. So that is definitely a lesson. You know, unless you have the value, like a cheap value, I should say, to really support it, and there's not a lot of good mid-range stuff. These spend ups are tough, man. And that's why. Listen, it's a sharp game. That's why the best players in the world are getting 5% ownership. You know, they just don't fit the optimal lineups all that well usually. Unfortunately, I don't see much else in this game. So I would say, you know, the contrarian in me would say, listen, if people are really never going to play these guys, we should probably just play them and just hope we get the rest of it right somehow. But aside from that, I really don't have too much in this game either.
Yeah, it depends. Again, Edwards and McDaniel's both been questionable. I don't mind Anthony Edwards if he plays. I think it's a good matchup for everybody on Minnesota side. You're playing Dallas, it's kind of what you want. If he doesn't play, I think that Karl-Anthony Towns is one of the best spend-ups on the slate. And I will just say Luka is my favorite spend-up on the slate. Like you said, though, I thought you prefaced it well. Make sure you it makes sense with the other stuff you're doing. And I might go back to Exum. We're looking at a totally different Dante Exum than we've seen in the past. And I've been really, really impressed. He's basically taken like Kyrie's role, you know, and he's 6,600. So I have Luka as a priority if I can get to him. And I do like the Exum. I think you could even include guys like Grant Williams potentially. I think this game should be a close game. And we'll just have to wait to see about Anthony Edwards and whether or not it becomes very stackable. Because if Edwards is out, it's just much easier to stack, although everyone's sort of priced for Edwards to be out. So it's a little bit funky. If Edwards is in, I think if you could run an Edwards-Luka lineup, you'd probably be pretty happy about it, at least as a chance to take a shot on. So
where did he start? Utah?
What's that? Oh, yeah, he was the number 5 overall pick, but he was 19 coming out of Australia. He's the reason Joe Ingles is in the league. They brought Joe Ingles over from Australia because they were like good friends. And he was like his mentor. And they brought Ingles in to be and he ended up being the one who played in Utah and has had a whole career. And Exum just came back to the league, so it's kind of funny.
Well, interestingly, just so you know, I mean, we'll get to why in a little bit, but I just ran a initial Saber Sim build with my with the True DFS projections in there, and currently I'm getting like 50% Luka actually.
Nice.
Yeah, so and we'll get to why. We can get to that a little bit later, but yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on to the next one. Brooklyn, Denver.
Yeah. So Brooklyn and Denver, just as far as projections go, I guess Jamal Murray, 7,300, I guess looks reasonable enough. I think I'm just going to get more. I think I have better options than. I say it's hard to say. It's so funny. I was about to say, well, they're better options than Jokic at the time. You know what I mean? Like, how do you even say something like that?
Yeah.
But like I said, I mean, just have Luka projecting a little bit better. But I mean, if it's what's the difference? I mean, just I guess because of the position, I suppose.
Well, yeah, I don't know, no, there's no Kyrie, and then Denver's got Murray back and Gordon back, and Jokic just played without.
Yeah, I guess so. That makes sense. So I guess if that's the case, I mean, I not too much projection wise, and even on my runs here, I'm not really getting to too much either. So unfortunately, It's turning into a very short slate for me right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Julian Strother is going to look like one of the best plays on the slate, even at 4,600 again.
What do you think?
So there's no KCP tonight, which means Christian Braun. Right now, I can tell by SaberSim's projections they're projecting Strother to start.
Okay.
I think it's just as likely Christian Braun starts, and I think they're both in play either way. So I will say Strother or Braun as a priority for value early in the day for me, for sure.
Hey, going back to Dallas for a second. Do we like any of that other Dallas stuff? Do we like Tim Hardaway Jr. or Grant Williams or anything like that? Because I mean, these 5K guys, they're just kind of a premium nowadays. And I just noticed I'm getting to some of them in my builds. I'm getting like 20% Grant Williams, like for example. Do we like any of those guys?
Yeah, I think that Grant Williams is completely playable at 5K. I mean, you're going to get it through the minutes with him. It's obviously not a great matchup, but they'll need him to be on the court because they need him. They need to match up. So he might play another 40 minutes again, like he did against the Lakers the other night. So yeah, I have no problem with Grant Williams. The Hardaway thing is just about how hot he is. Nobody ended up playing. They were all afraid of the back spasms the other night, and of course he was the one in the winning lineup. That was the one way that I got because I had the reverse pairings. He was in the non-Luka lineups that got there. So I guess it makes some sense, but it's a tough matchup. And yes, I think we should probably include Hardaway in the mix, but I don't know. I think he and Exum are pretty close for me. So Grant Williams probably be number 2 just because of the value, but I don't even love that. I'd like it better if Derrick Jones Jr. is out, which we won't know until later, obviously.
Okay.
And then I said the Denver side. On the Brooklyn side of that Denver game, I really think the only thing that I would have a little bit of interest in, and it's pretty small, would be Claxton. And I think that I'll probably just fight another day. Maybe you could tell yourself a story, and it's a big slate, but there aren't that many great plays. Maybe you could talk yourself into a long shot Day'Ron Sharpe play. Claxton gets in foul trouble to back-to-back. Maybe Day'Ron Sharpe has a few good moments against Jokic, and they let him stay on the court. But I don't think we need to go that crazy. You also have Watford who kind of mucks it up. Maybe Watford actually is the guy people will play because he's cheap enough. So just wanted to throw that out there. All right, Utah. What do you have next, actually?
I have Oklahoma City, Sacramento.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, let's do that one.
Yeah, so a couple of items from this game. First of all, again, I just find this interesting. Like what's different between what looks like a good play on paper on the projections and then what looks good when you actually run lineups. Like I'm getting, as far as just looking at projections and stuff, I'm seeing a pretty good ratio for Chet Holmgren. Like I have him like 5th or 6th like point per dollar, which you don't see from him too often. And then like when I run the builds, like the $7,400 price tag just doesn't really fit in. You know what I mean? To the way most lineups get constructed here, so I'd end up only with like 10% of him. But I mean, he certainly if he does look like a really, really good play. So I certainly wouldn't falter for playing him. Again, the center position is usually loaded, so I guess that factors into that a little bit. The real cheapo, I mean, on this game is Dort. I mean, he's 4,300. That's just a little bit too cheap. I would say a lot too cheap. So I guess he's going to be, really popular, I would imagine. I mean, there's just nothing out there anymore under 5K. So I imagine he's going to get jammed. And the other one, a little more expensive, would be Josh Giddey at 6,000. So I like them. On the Sacramento side, the only one I'm really getting to is well, that's not true. I'm getting a little bit of these mid-range guys like Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, Harrison Barnes, like these 5K to 6K guys are just kind of dominating the proceedings, so to speak. So I guess I'll just lead with that. I'm not getting up to the spend-ups like Fox or Sabonis or whatever.
Yeah, this game has a massive total. I think you could do certainly worse than trying to stack this game up and waiting on some news. If you can, you've got the value part in Dort. I think Chet is a really good play, but I also think like you could say one of Chet, Giddey, Shea, or Jalen Williams. I think that my favorite would be Chet because the price. Chet then Giddey, probably then Shea, then Jalen Williams, and Jalen Williams maybe more on the outside looking in. On the Sacramento side, I think it's starting to get a little cheap, like reasonably priced enough for Sabonis. Both Sabonis and Fox, I think, are okay. I sort of agree with you though. The Monk and the Murray, just as we don't have a ton of other plays in this range, I think those are the two ones that I would consider probably playing in the mid range.
So that 10 o'clock game, I usually talk about the breakdown of the slate, right? So there are 2 at 7:30, 1 at 8:30, then a 9. Then there are 3 10 o'clocks, and the first one we just went over, Oklahoma, Kansas City. Actually, there are 2 10 o'clocks. And the second of the 2 10 o'clocks is where all this value is coming from. I presume that in addition to Clarkson being out, that they expect that that Markkanen is not going to play. Yeah, okay. It had to be. So yeah, he's going to receive maintenance for his left hamstring. Yeah, back to back. Hey, listen, give the guy a break. So with that said, you got Olynyk, Sexton, Taylor, Horton, Tucker. These are the guys that are showing up like initially, but then like it gets even more deep. I'm getting when I run lineup builds. I'm getting Taylor Hendricks, Fontecchio, but I guess what happened with Kessler last night? Okay, so he only played 23 minutes, scored 25 fantasy points. Wouldn't expect too much from him on a back-to-back, I guess. But all those other guys are just wicked cheap. I mean, not even that cheap, but you know what I mean. But
you don't have that else. Anything else.
Yeah, and there's nobody else, and with Markkanen back being out again, they're like the best of these alternatives. Now, it's the first time I've seen Taylor Horton Tucker break into this conversation in a while. But I guess you got to play a bunch of them now.
Yeah, as of right now, I have THT and Sexton as the priorities. I do think there's definitely always a case you could make for fading THT when he's Horton Tucker when he's popular. Just because we've seen it happen so many times, like where he ends up sort of fading out, and they let the other guys like Agbaji and Chris Dunn. I think Chris Dunn might have been on one of the winners.
He got in, yeah, he played.
Yeah, he played. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, he's 4,300 now. I'm not going to play him, but John Collins still being questionable is somewhat relevant because Kelly Olynyk's like projection is kind of crazy to me. I don't know why it's so high.
But I have to presume that he's out, right, Collins?
Well, but they have Collins with a pretty reasonable projection. So so somewhere between THT, Sexton, Hendricks, and Olynyk, you're probably playing 2 of those guys at least for value. And as of right now, I would say my favorite is probably Sexton, and followed by potentially Hendricks, actually, if John Collins is out. I just really going to depend on whether Collins plays or not. My guess is because of the back-to-back and he didn't play before, it'd be weird to play him on the road against Portland.
Yeah.
But it is a game they could win, so maybe they do play him. It's a little tricky. And then you've got Scoot on the other side, looks like a reasonable value, which we know has not gotten there basically
until his last game.
Until the last one. And this is a great matchup for it. So Scoot is definitely in play for me, but I also want to point out that Simons at 7,800 might actually be cheap for him. Like we might see him, he might end up being like one of the 8,500, 9K guys, and just throwing it out there. So if there's a potential, you could figure out a way to try and stack these late games because the OKC Phoenix Sacramento game is a great pace and a good spend ups. You have some value in this game you could use. It seems starting to feel like a little delayed slate for me, at least at the moment.
Do we need Brogdon to be out to play these guards or no?
I don't think we need him to be out, but I think it would certainly help. But as of right now, I don't even know how to project whether he'll play or not. You know what I mean? He just hasn't been playing. At some point, you think they'll play him again, but no, Simons you could still play, but obviously without Brogdon, Simons becomes a better play. So does Scoot Henderson, et cetera. And DeAndre Ayton, I'm assuming, is going to play tonight, but we don't have official word yet, so we'll see.
So this is going to be like the usual thing. The usual thing with these late night sweats that I put on is that there's these games that are going that we think are just going to decide the slate. And once the slate's kind of looks like it's been decided, someone's sweating or anti-sweating Kawhi Leonard, it seems. Literally every single time.
Yeah.
So and part of that is because he plays in Los Angeles, so he tends to play late. But nonetheless, you got the last game of the slate, which is a lot of Hall of Fame players. You know what I mean? You have Curry. I presume you do not have Draymond Green, right? Okay, I would hope not. I would hope Draymond Green would be suspended. And the Clippers, it's the normal three guys, right? I do see that Paul George is listed as questionable here.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, if he's out, then either of those other guys are really, really good plays, I think. And if they're all in, I still wouldn't mind taking a shot at any of them, you know? So, as usual, not as usual, actually. On this day, I think they're not going to be very highly owned. Like remember, we had the Kawhi day the other day where just because of the way the slate was created, you know, everybody got to Kawhi. But I don't think that people are going to get to him today because you don't need to. So if that's the case, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you get one of those guys at lower ownership to kind of hammer on the Utah Portland hammer, so to speak. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree with, you know, everything. Like, I think that, again, more information to wait on. I think Harden and Kawhi become tremendous plays if Paul George is out. Also, they've raised his price a little too high for Norman Powell. But even if they play, I agree that both Harden, Paul George, and Kawhi, I would have it ranked Kawhi, Paul George, then Harden, but it's pretty close between all three of them, if you wanted the truth. And I think they're all very reasonable plays. And if we do lose Kawhi, I mean, if we lose Paul George, that definitely is something. So again, it just speaks to delaying the slate.
Is there anybody that stands out because of Draymond being out or no?
Kuminga.
Okay.
Kuminga is going to be the one who projects the best. I think you could take a shot on Podziemski. They played both of them down the stretch in the last game without Draymond. So Podziemski and Kuminga would be probably my two favorites. I think you could. I mean, look, people could argue for Chris Paul and Steph Curry and all that stuff, but I just don't think I really want to get heavily invested in that. And it really is starting to feel like Andrew Wiggins is like on the way out, but I don't know. So it's really tricky. Everybody else that would fill in, like Clay and Wiggins, have been so bad. Maybe Chris Paul would be, other than Kuminga or Podziemski, the next guy I would go to. No one's going to play Steph Curry, and this is the kind of matchup where Steph Curry could go completely nuts. So just throwing that out there. We haven't really seen that monster game, partly because nobody else can hit shots on their team. But I wouldn't mind getting a little bit of it. I just want to say real quick, Joanne just posted in here that you know, lost her best friend. I'm really sorry for you, Joanne. Really nice person. Really sorry. Nice to see you as always. But I really just our hearts out with you. Sending out all the positive messages. I feel really sorry to hear that. Didn't really know how to address it, but I feel for you, Joanne. Anyway, for this, as far as the slate goes, I do like the Bulls guys. I think that, like, again, Kobe White might be my favorite. Luka's my favorite. Spend all the way up. One of Exum or Hardaway makes some sense. I think Strother or Braun are going to end up being priorities by the end of the day, as are Lou Dort, because of the price. The Shet, Giddey, Shea, and J. Will group. I have it in that order, but I think that they're all very interesting. Then you have the value for THT or Sexton. I think you can play them both together tonight, but I certainly like the idea of getting at least one. Then you have the Hendricks Olynyk thing. I think you can play at least one of those. And Scoot Henderson is another potential value. Then you get Kuminga and one of the PG, Kawhi or Harden. That's just the first look of everything I've got so far. Anyway, Sheets. That's what I got. Anything you want to add?
No, I mean, Utah, I guess. Lou Dort, I guess. Probably, for me, not so much in these first two games, you know, Cleveland, which helps. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If I can not really like anything, I know you like Chicago guys more than I do, but if I can not like anything from Cleveland, Boston, Chicago, Miami, it makes my evening a little easier.
Yeah.
Then you can wait on stuff. And I don't know what I'm waiting on really, but that's the beauty of it. You don't know what you're waiting on.
Yeah, we've had stuff late every day so far, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, all right, man, sounds good. And sending love to Joanne. Guys, please click the like on the video and all that stuff. It's again, hearts out to Joanne. Don't really know how else to talk about other things after you see something like that. But good luck to everybody today. We'll see you guys live at 6:30 Eastern. And I hope you guys crush it.